Captain Wu Jin was having a normal day. He flew his small patrol ship through the quiet space near Jupiter, checking for space junk and broken satellites. For the past 3,000 years, this job had been boring. Earth was at peace. The solar system was safe. Nothing ever happened out here. Wu Jin liked it that way. He was 32 years old and had never seen a real fight. His grandfather used to tell stories about the old wars between countries, but those seemed like fairy tales now. Earth was united. People were happy. Life was good. His ship's alarm started beeping. Wu Jin looked at his screen and frowned. Something big was coming toward the solar system. Something very big. "Computer, what is that?" he asked. "Unknown objects detected. Size extremely large. Speed faster than light. Distance 1,000,000 kilometers and closing." Wu Jin's eyes went wide. Nothing human could move that fast or be that big. He had never seen anything like this before. 12 massive ships appeared out of nowhere. Each one was the size of a small moon. They were dark and covered with sharp edges that looked like weapons. Red lights glowed along their sides like angry eyes. Wu Jin's hands shook as he called Earth Defense Force headquarters. "This is Captain Wu Jin on Patrol 7. We have a problem. A really big problem." Admiral Kyung Ho answered the call. He was 45 years old and had been in charge of Earth's defenses for 10 years. In all that time, the most exciting thing he had dealt with was a broken communication satellite. "What kind of problem, Captain?" Kyung Ho asked in his calm voice. 12 alien ships just appeared, sir. They're huge, and they don't look friendly." Kyung Ho almost laughed. "Alien ships? Captain, are you feeling okay?" "Sir, I'm sending you the video now." Kyung Ho looked at his screen and his smile disappeared. The ships were real. They were massive, and they were heading straight for Earth. "Get back to base right now, Captain. Stay away from those ships." Kyung Ho called an emergency meeting. Dr. Hana, the chief scientist who studied alien life, rushed to the command center. Minister Yunji, who handled Earth's politics, arrived 5 minutes later. None of them had ever expected this day to come. "Are we sure they're aliens?" Minister Yunji asked. Dr. Hana nodded. "The metal they use is nothing like ours. The energy readings are off the charts. These ships are definitely not human." Before anyone could say more, every screen in the command center turned red. A loud voice filled the room. It spoke in perfect English but with a strange accent. "People of the planet you call Earth, we are the Velthari Empire. We have conquered 17 star systems. Your peaceful time is over." A face appeared on the screen. It looked almost human, but the skin was gray and the eyes were completely black. Sharp teeth filled its mouth when it spoke. "We have watched your world for many years. You are weak. You have no real weapons. You have forgotten how to fight. This makes you easy to conquer." Admiral Kyung Ho felt a chill run down his back. Dr. Hana gripped her chair. Minister Yunji stared at the screen in shock. "You have 72 of your hours to surrender. Give us control of your planet. Submit to our rule. Become our slaves. If you refuse, we will destroy every city on Earth. We will kill every human. Your species will become extinct." The alien's black eyes seemed to look right through the screen. "We are the Velthari. We do not show mercy. We do not negotiate. You will obey or you will die. This is your only warning." The screen went black. The command center was silent for a long moment. Then Minister Yunji spoke in a whisper. "Did that really just happen?" "It happened," Dr. Hana said. "And they're serious. My computers show those ships have enough firepower to destroy our planet." Admiral Kyung Ho stood up. "We need to tell the people. We need to prepare defenses. We need to—" His phone started ringing. Then Dr. Hana's phone rang. Then Minister Yunji's phone rang. Every communication device in the command center started making noise at once. "Sir," a young officer called out. The alien message was broadcast to everyone on Earth. Every TV, every computer, every phone. 7 billion people just heard that threat. Admiral Kyung Ho expected panic. He expected riots in the streets. He expected people to demand protection or beg for surrender. Instead, the young officer started laughing. "Sir, you need to see this," the officer said, still chuckling. "People are posting videos online. They're making jokes about the aliens. Someone already made a funny song about them." Dr. Hana pulled up the global communication network on her computer. Her mouth fell open. Instead of fear, she saw laughter. Instead of panic, she saw memes. Thousands of people were making fun of the alien threat. One video showed the alien message with silly music added. Another showed a cartoon version of the alien with huge teeth and tiny arms. A news comedian was already doing impressions of the alien voice. The most popular post said, "Did anyone else think that alien looked like my angry uncle when he doesn't get enough coffee?" Minister Yoonji stared at the screen. "They're not scared." "Why aren't they scared?" Admiral Kyung-ho scratched his head. "I have no idea. Someone just threatened to blow up our planet and people are treating it like a joke." A message appeared on Dr. Hana's screen. It was from her teenage daughter. "Mom, did you see the funny alien on TV? His teeth are so big. My friends are making memes. This is the best day ever." Dr. Hana looked at Admiral Kyung-ho. "What do we do now?" The Admiral thought for a moment. Then, despite everything, he started to smile. "You know what? Maybe our people have the right idea. These aliens expect us to be scared. They expect us to panic. They've probably never met anyone who laughed at them before." He turned to Minister Yoonji. "What's our official response going to be?" Minister Yoonji looked at the screens full of laughing, joking humans. She thought about the alien's angry face and serious threats. Then she started to smile too. "I think," she said slowly, "we're going to give them something they've never experienced before. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten people who don't scare easily." Outside, the alien ships waited in space, expecting fear and surrender. Instead, Earth was laughing at them. The 3,000-year peace had taught humanity something the aliens didn't expect. Sometimes the best response to a bully is to refuse to be bullied. The war was about to begin, but it would be unlike any war the galaxy had ever seen. The next morning, Earth woke up laughing. Instead of hiding in their homes or crying in fear, people went to work as usual. They made coffee, walked their dogs, and checked their phones for the latest alien jokes. Tae-hyung was Earth's most famous comedian. He had made people laugh for 20 years, but he had never had material this good. His manager called him at 6 in the morning. "Tae-hyung, you need to do a special show about these aliens. The whole world wants to see it." "I'm already writing it," Tae-hyung said, typing on his computer. "These aliens have no idea what they just started. You don't threaten humans and expect us to be polite about it." By noon, Tae-hyung's emergency comedy show was ready. He called it Space Bullies and How to Roast Them. The show was broadcast to every country on Earth. 3 billion people watched it live. "So," Tae-hyung said on stage, "aliens finally came to Earth, and what's the first thing they do? They threaten us! No hello, no nice planet you have here, just straight to surrender or die. Someone needs to teach these guys about good manners." The audience laughed. People watching at home laughed. Even some of the aliens monitoring Earth's broadcast were confused by the strange human reaction. "And did you see their ships?" Tae-hyung continued. 12 huge, dark, scary-looking things. Someone told these aliens that bigger always means better. "But you know what I see? I see 12 guys who are trying way too hard to look tough. It's like they're compensating for something." On the alien flagship, Warlord Zaxtel watched the human broadcast with growing confusion. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever responded like this. Fear was supposed to come first, then begging, then surrender. This laughter was not part of the plan. "Supreme Commander," his second-in-command said nervously, "the humans are not responding correctly." Zaxtel's black eyes narrowed. "They will learn fear. Continue monitoring their communications. When they realize we are serious, they will surrender." But the humans did not realize they should be serious. Instead, they got more creative with their jokes. Engineer Soo-young worked for Earth's communication department. She was 28 years old and very good at designing broadcasts. Her boss called her into his office. "Soo-young, the government wants to send an official response to the aliens, but they want it to be special." "What kind of special?" she asked. "The kind that makes them wish they had never come here." Soo-young smiled. "I can work with that." She spent 6 hours creating Earth's official response. She used the same dramatic style as the alien message, but filled it with the kind of humor that only humans could create. Meanwhile, Dr. Hana was studying the alien broadcasts more carefully. She discovered something important about Velthari culture. Everything they did was designed to create fear. Their ships looked scary on purpose. Their uniforms were black and sharp. Even their language was full of threats and dark words. "They've built their entire civilization on making other species afraid," she told Admiral Kyung-ho. "Fear is how they control people. It's how they maintain power. Without fear, their whole system falls apart. And we're not giving them any fear," the Admiral said. "Exactly. We're giving them something they've never encountered before. We're giving them mockery." At 6 o'clock that evening, Earth broadcast its official response. Minister Yoonji spoke first, but her words were written by comedian Ta Hyung and presented by engineer Soo Young. "Dear Velthari Empire," Minister Yoonji said in a sweet, polite voice. "Thank you so much for your dramatic message yesterday. We were really impressed by your big ships and scary voices. You must have practiced that threatening speech for hours." On the alien ships, Warlord Zaxtul felt something he had never felt before. Confusion mixed with embarrassment. "We are honored that such mighty conquerors would take time from their busy schedule of bullying smaller civilizations to visit our little solar system," Minister Yoonji continued. "However, we must politely decline your generous offer of slavery and death." The broadcast switched to show Tai Hyung, who was standing in front of a chart. "Let's review the Velthari Empire's conquest strategy," he said like a teacher. "Step 1. Show up with really big ships. Step 2. Make scary faces and threats. Step 3. Wait for surrender. Step 4. Victory." He paused. "The problem is you guys forgot about Step 5. What happens when people laugh at you instead?" The chart behind him showed a drawing of confused alien faces with question marks over their heads. "We've done some research on your empire," Taehyung continued. 17 conquered systems. Very impressive. But we noticed something funny. All those systems surrendered immediately. You've never actually had to fight anyone who fought back. You're like the school bully who only picks on kids smaller than him." The broadcast switched back to Minister Yoonji. "We suggest you try the Andromeda Galaxy for your next conquest," she said cheerfully. "We hear they're more impressed by oversized ships and dramatic speeches. Here in the Sol system, we prefer our visitors to be polite and friendly. Also," Taehyung added, appearing on screen again, "next time you want to conquer someone, maybe don't give them 3 days to prepare. That's like calling someone to tell them you're coming to rob their house. It's not very smart." The broadcast ended with Earth's new motto displayed in big, colorful letters. "Sol system, where bullies come to get roasted." Within hours, the broadcast had spread beyond Earth. The messages reached other star systems, including some controlled by the Velthari Empire. For the first time in decades, conquered species heard someone standing up to their oppressors. On a mining planet in the Kepler system, alien slaves watched the human broadcast in secret. They had lived in fear of the Velthari for 30 years, but now they saw something impossible. Someone was making fun of their masters. "Did you see how they laughed?" whispered one slave to another. "They're not afraid at all." "Maybe the Velthari aren't as scary as we thought," said another. On the Velthari flagship, chaos was spreading. Officers who had never questioned orders were now asking uncomfortable questions. "Sir," a young officer said to Warlord Zaxtul, "what if the humans are right? What if we are just bullies?" Zaxtul roared with anger. "Silence! We are the masters of the galaxy! We are feared by all." But even as he shouted, doubt crept into his mind. No species had ever laughed at the Velthari before. No one had ever called them bullies. The humans were treating them like a joke. And the worst part was, the humans seemed to be having fun doing it. Dr. Hana monitored the alien communications and discovered something amazing. The Velthari fleet was intercepting panicked messages from their homeworlds. Conquered species across the galaxy were starting to rebel. They had seen Earth's broadcast, and for the first time in years, they were not afraid. "It's working," she told Admiral Kyung-ho. "Their empire is starting to crack. Fear was the only thing holding it together, and we just showed everyone that the Velthari can be mocked." Admiral Kyung-ho looked at the reports coming in from across the galaxy. 17 star systems were beginning to question their Velthari overlords, all because Earth had chosen laughter over fear. "You know," he said to Dr. Hana, "I think we might have accidentally started a galactic revolution, and we did it with comedy." The 72-hour deadline was approaching, but nobody on Earth seemed worried. They were too busy making jokes and preparing their next round of mockery. The 3,000-year peace had taught them something valuable. Sometimes the best weapon against aggression is the refusal to take it seriously. The Velthari had expected fear and surrender. Instead, they got the greatest roasting in galactic history, and it was only the beginning. The first Velthari defection happened at exactly 3:47 in the morning, Earth time. A small escape pod detached from one of the alien ships and flew straight toward Captain Mi Young's welcome wagon fleet. The pod sent a simple message in broken English. "Please help. Want to join humans. Tired of being mean." Mi Young's crew carefully brought the pod aboard their ship. Inside was a young Velthari soldier named Kithan. He was shaking with fear, but not fear of the humans. He was afraid of what his own people would do to him for deserting. "Please," Kithan said through the translation device. "I want to learn about not being afraid. I want to learn about this thing you call kindness." Mi Young smiled and handed him a cup of hot chocolate. "Welcome to freedom," she said. Within 6 hours, Earth's first alien defector was being interviewed on every news channel in the solar system. Kithan's story was heartbreaking and hopeful at the same time. "In Velthari Empire," he said in his improving English, "we learn to fear everything. Fear our commanders, fear our enemies, fear being weak, fear showing kindness. But humans show kindness to enemies. This confuses me. This makes me think maybe fear is wrong." Ambassador Songmin was Earth's top diplomat. She had spent her career handling negotiations between different human governments, but she had never imagined she would be negotiating with alien defectors. "Tell us about your empire," she asked Kithan gently. "Empire is built on fear," Kithan explained. "Everyone afraid of everyone else. Soldiers afraid of officers. Officers afraid of commanders. Commanders afraid of emperors. Nobody questions orders because questioning means death." "But you question them," Songmin said. "Humans made me think. If humans not afraid of us, maybe being afraid is choice. Maybe I can choose not to be afraid too." Kithan's interview was broadcast to every Velthari ship in the fleet. The impact was immediate. More escape pods started launching from the alien vessels. By the end of the day, 12 more Velthari soldiers had defected to the human side. On the flagship, Warlord Zaxtel was losing his mind. Desertion was the worst crime in Velthari culture. It was punishable by death for the deserter and their entire family. But how could he punish soldiers who were no longer on his ships? "Sir," his nervous communications officer reported, "we're receiving defection requests from 17 more ships. Some entire crews want to surrender to the humans." "No!" Zaxtel roared. "We are the Velthari. We do not surrender. We do not defect. We conquer!" But even as he shouted, Zaxtel could see the doubt in his officer's eyes. They were watching the human broadcasts. They were seeing their fellow Velthari being treated with kindness instead of punishment. They were starting to wonder why they had spent their lives being afraid. Meanwhile, young A was studying the situation for her final project at Earth's military academy. Young E was Admiral Kyung-ho's daughter, and she was very smart. At 22 years old, she was already one of the academy's top students. "Father," she said during their daily call, "I think we're missing an opportunity." "What do you mean?" Admiral Kyung-ho asked. "We're treating the Velthari like enemies who we're mocking. But what if we treated them like friends who just need help?" Young A had been watching the defector interviews. She noticed something important. The Velthari soldiers weren't evil. They were scared. They had been raised in a culture that taught them to be afraid of everything and everyone. "What if we officially invited all of them to join us?" Young E suggested. "Not just the ones who defect, but all of them. What if we offered them a chance to be part of something better?" Her father thought about this. "That's either brilliant or completely crazy. Maybe both," Youngie said with a smile. The idea was so unusual that it took 3 hours of debate before Earth's leadership agreed to try it. But once they decided, they went all in. Earth's next broadcast was different from all the others. Instead of comedian Tai Hyung or diplomat minister Yoon Ji, the message came from ordinary humans. Teachers, doctors, farmers, artists, and children. Each one spoke directly to the Velthari soldiers. "Hi there," said a teacher from Tokyo. "I heard you've spent your whole lives being afraid. That sounds really hard. Would you like to come to Earth and learn about not being afraid? We have great schools here." "Hello, alien friends," said a doctor from Lagos. "I help people who are hurt or sick. If any of you are tired of hurting others, you can come learn how to help people instead. Healing is much more fun than destroying." "Welcome to our solar system," said a farmer from Iowa. "I grow food to feed people. It's much better than taking food away from people. You can come learn how to make things grow instead of making things die." Even the children spoke to the aliens. "Hi, I'm 8 years old," said a girl from Mumbai. "I heard you're really big and scary, but you don't seem scary to me. You seem sad. Do you want to come play with us? We have really good games." The broadcast continued for 2 hours. Hundreds of humans spoke directly to the Velthari soldiers, offering friendship, education, jobs, and homes. They offered everything the aliens had never had: a life without fear. The Seoul Tourism Board made it official. The Sol system hereby extends an invitation to all members of the Velthari military to abandon their aggressive tour package and try our peaceful vacation option instead. Benefits include no more angry conquest schedules, unlimited access to our entertainment, free education, guaranteed safety, and the novel experience of making friends instead of enemies. The broadcast included detailed instructions on how to defect safely, legal protections for defectors, and a promise that no Velthari would be punished for their past actions if they chose to join human society. The response was overwhelming. Within hours, entire Velthari ships were broadcasting surrender messages. They didn't want to fight anymore. They wanted to try this thing called being happy. But the most important message came from the Kepler mining system. The alien slaves who had been watching human broadcasts finally found their courage. "Attention, Velthari commanders," the message said. "This is mining station Kepler 7. We are no longer your slaves. We choose freedom. We choose to be like the humans. We choose not to be afraid." Similar messages came from 6 other Velthari-controlled worlds. The Empire wasn't just losing its invasion fleet. It was losing its entire foundation of fear-based control. Warlord Zaxtool sat alone in his command center, watching his empire collapse around him. Half of his fleet had defected. His conquered worlds were rebelling. His own officers were questioning orders they had followed without thought for decades. "Sir," his last loyal officer said quietly, "perhaps we should consider the human offer. They promise safety for those who surrender." Zaxtool looked at his officer with surprise. This was his most trusted commander, someone who had served the Empire for 30 years. If even he was considering defection, then the Velthari way of life was truly over. "You want to surrender to these humans?" Zaxtool asked. "Sir, I want to stop being afraid all the time. I want to try being happy. The humans seem very good at being happy." For the first time in his life, Warlord Zaxtool had no idea what to do. His empire had been built on fear, and the humans had taken that fear away. Without fear, the Velthari had no power. Without power, they had nothing. The 72-hour deadline had passed, but nobody cared anymore. The war was over before it had really begun. The humans had won, not through superior weapons or military strategy, but through something much more powerful. They had shown their enemies a better way to live. And for the first time in galactic history, an invasion had ended not with conquest or destruction, but with an offer of friendship that was too good to refuse. 6 months after the invasion, the Velthari Empire no longer existed. It hadn't been destroyed by weapons or conquered by force. It had simply been abandoned. 3/4 of the Velthari military had defected to human space. The rest had gone home to their families, tired of being soldiers in an army that nobody believed in anymore. Former warlord Zaxtool now lived in a small apartment in Seoul, South Korea. He no longer called himself warlord or supreme commander. He was just Zax, a student learning about human culture. Every morning, Zax walked to Seoul University, where Dr. Hana taught him about something called peaceful civilization. It was the hardest subject he had ever studied. "I don't understand," Zax said during one of their lessons. "How did humans achieve 3,000 years of peace? My people could barely achieve 3 days without someone starting a fight." Dr. Hana smiled patiently. She had been working with former Velthari soldiers for months now, and they all asked the same question. "We learned something important," she explained. "We learned that being strong doesn't mean making others weak. Being powerful doesn't mean making others afraid. True strength comes from helping others become strong too. But how do you control people if they're not afraid of you?" Zax asked. "That's the secret," Dr. Hana said. "We don't control people. We work together with them. When everyone is happy and safe, nobody wants to fight." Zax wrote this down in his notebook, but he still looked confused. After spending his whole life in a culture based on fear and control, the idea of cooperation was completely foreign to him. "In my empire," Zax said slowly, "we taught that the universe was full of enemies. We had to conquer them before they conquered us." "And how did that work out for you?" Dr. Hana asked gently. Zax thought about his collapsed empire, his defected soldiers, and his failed invasion. "Not very well," he admitted. Captain Kithan had adapted to human life much better than his former commander. He now went by the human name Kit and commanded his own ship in the joint human Velthari exploration fleet. Kit's ship was called the Friendship, and its crew was half human, half former Velthari. Their mission was to explore new worlds but not to conquer them. Instead, they looked for other species who might want to join the growing galactic community based on peace and cooperation. Captain Kit, his human second-in-command, said, "We're approaching the Tau Ceti system. Our sensors detect an intelligent civilization." Kit smiled. 6 months ago, detecting intelligent life would have meant planning an invasion. Now it meant planning a friendly introduction. "Open a communication channel," Kit ordered. "Let's say hello properly this time." The ship's motto was painted on its side in both human and Velthari languages. Boldly going where no one has gone before, but politely asking permission first. Back on Earth, the transformation had been remarkable. The 17 worlds that had been conquered by the Velthari Empire were now free and independent. But instead of celebrating their freedom alone, they had asked to join the human solar system, Alliance. "We want to learn the human way," explained Ambassador Felkira from the former mining world of Kepler 7. "We want to learn how to live without fear." The result was the largest, peaceful first contact event in galactic history. Earth was now the center of a confederation of 19 star systems, all united by the simple principle that cooperation was better than conquest. Admiral Kyung-ho found himself managing the biggest peacekeeping operation ever attempted. Instead of preparing for war, his job was now to help former enemies become friends. "Sir," his aide reported, "we have 17 more applications from former Velthari worlds. They all want to join our alliance." Admiral Kyung-ho looked at the reports covering his desk: food shipments to former slave worlds, educational exchanges between species, cultural festivals celebrating diversity, medical aid to planets that had been damaged by Velthari rule. "You know," he said to his aide, "this is much more work than preparing for war ever was, but much more rewarding," his aide replied. The Admiral nodded. "Definitely more rewarding." The biggest change was in the former Velthari soldiers themselves. They had spent their lives learning how to destroy, but now they were learning how to build. Former warriors became teachers, doctors, farmers, and artists. They discovered talents they never knew they had because their old society had only valued fighting. Comedian Tai Hyung had become something of a galactic celebrity. His comedy shows were broadcast to all 19 member worlds of the new alliance. But his most popular show was Comedy Lessons for Former Conquerors, where he taught ex-Velthari soldiers how to make people laugh instead of making them afraid. The secret to good comedy, Taehyung told his mixed-species audience, is the same as the secret to good diplomacy. You have to understand your audience. You have to care about making them happy instead of making them submit. One of his students was a former Velthari general who had conquered 3 star systems. Now he did stand-up comedy about his experiences learning to be peaceful. "I used to think the best way to end an argument was to kill everyone who disagreed with me," the former general said on stage. "Turns out listening to what they have to say works much better." "Who knew?" The audience laughed, but it was kind laughter. They weren't making fun of him. They were celebrating how much he had changed. The transformation wasn't always easy. Many former Velthari struggled with the concept of freedom. After living their entire lives following orders, they didn't know how to make their own choices. Dr. Boram had started a therapy program called Learning to be Free. It helped former soldiers understand that they could choose their own careers, their own homes, and their own friends. "Freedom is scary at first," she told her patients. "When you've always been told what to do, making your own decisions feels impossible. But with practice, it becomes natural." The program was so successful that other species asked for similar help. Throughout the galaxy, former slaves and conquered peoples were learning that they didn't have to live in fear anymore. The greatest success story was the first Galactic Comedy Festival, held exactly 1 year after the failed invasion. It was hosted jointly by Earth and the former Velthari worlds, and species from across the galaxy attended. The opening act was performed by Warlord Zax himself. He told jokes about his failed invasion attempt and how humans had taught him that laughter was more powerful than fear. "I came to Earth with 12 massive warships," Zax said on stage. "I had enough firepower to destroy a planet. I had thousands of soldiers ready to conquer. And do you know what the humans did? They made jokes about my teeth." The audience roared with laughter. And you know what? They were right. My teeth were ridiculous. Everything about my empire was ridiculous. We spent so much energy trying to look scary that we forgot to actually accomplish anything useful. It was the biggest laugh of the night. The festival ended with a joint performance by human and former Velthari artists. They sang a song about friendship between former enemies, and there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. As the festival concluded, Admiral Kyung-ho reflected on everything that had happened. A year ago, Earth had faced the greatest threat in its 3,000-year peaceful history. But instead of responding with violence, humans had responded with humor. Instead of fighting their enemies, they had made friends with them. You know, he said to Dr. Hana as they watched the closing ceremony, I think we might have accidentally discovered the secret to permanent peace. What's that? She asked. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't let fear control your decisions. And always remember that your enemies are just people who haven't learned how to be friends yet. Dr. Hana nodded. And sometimes all they need is someone to show them a better way. The 3,000-year peace had not only continued but had expanded to encompass 19 star systems and countless species. Earth had become the center of a galactic community based not on fear or conquest, but on the revolutionary idea that everyone deserved to be happy and free. And it all started because humans chose to laugh at bullies instead of being afraid of them. The war that never was had become the peace that changed the galaxy. The Velthari Empire was gone, but in its place was something much better. A galaxy where former enemies worked together, where laughter was more powerful than weapons, and where the greatest strength came from helping others find their own strength. The joke, it turned out, was on anyone who thought that peace was weakness. Humans had proven that kindness was the ultimate power, and that the best way to defeat your enemies was to turn them into friends. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what everyone had hoped for. The Velthari Empire was falling apart, and it had only been 2 days since they arrived at Earth. Warlord Zaxtul stood in his command center, reading reports that made no sense. 3 of his conquered worlds had stopped sending tribute. 2 more had declared independence. His own soldiers were asking questions they had never asked before. Supreme Commander, his communications officer said nervously, We're receiving surrender requests. Good, Zaxtul said. The humans are finally— No, sir. The surrender requests are coming from our own ships. Zaxtul's jaw dropped. What? 17 of our crew members want to defect to the humans. They say they want to learn about something called comedy and not being afraid all the time. On Earth, Dr. Boram was having the time of her life. She was a psychologist who studied how large groups of people behaved. For 30 years, she had written papers about peaceful societies and conflict resolution. Now she was watching the greatest example of psychological warfare in galactic history. It's beautiful, she told Admiral Kyung-ho during their morning meeting. The Velthari built their entire culture on fear. Every part of their society depends on others being afraid of them. But fear only works if people choose to be afraid. And we chose not to be afraid, the Admiral said. Exactly. We chose to laugh instead. And laughter is contagious. It spreads faster than fear, and it's much harder to stop. Dr. Boram pulled up a chart on her computer. Look at this. Fear makes people isolated and weak. But humor brings people together. It makes them strong. The more the Velthari try to scare us, the more we laugh. And the more their own people start to question why they should be afraid. While Dr. Boram explained the psychology of the situation, a young hacker named Jae-sung was busy with his own project. Jae-sung was 25 years old and very good with computers. He had spent 2 days trying to break into Velthari computer networks. Got it, he shouted to his team of fellow hackers. I'm inside their communication system. What Jae-sung found was shocking. The Velthari military was in complete chaos. Soldiers were questioning orders. Officers were having nervous breakdowns. Some ships had already left the fleet and were heading back to their home worlds. Look at this message, Jae-sung said, translating alien text on his screen. It's from a Velthari soldier to his family. He says the humans are not afraid of us. They think we're funny. I'm starting to think maybe we are funny. Why do we try so hard to scare people? Why can't we just be nice instead?
Jae-sung found hundreds of similar messages.
The human response had caused a crisis of confidence throughout the entire Velthari fleet. Meanwhile, Captain Mi-young was preparing Earth's most unusual military response in history. Mi-young was 34 years old and commanded a small fleet of civilian ships. Her ships were originally designed for tourism and cargo transport. not war. But Earth's leadership had a special job for her. "Captain," Admiral Kyung-ho said over the communication system, "we want you to visit our alien guests, but not as a military force. We want you to treat them like tourists." "Tourists, sir?" "Exactly. Welcome them to the solar system. Give them a tour. Show them how civilized people behave." Mi Young loved the idea. She gathered 30 civilian ships and painted them in bright, cheerful colors. Each ship broadcasted happy music and friendly messages. They called themselves the Welcome Wagon Fleet. As the Welcome Wagon approached the alien armada, Mi Young opened a communication channel to the Velthari flagship. "Hello there, visitors from the Velthari Empire. Welcome to the Sol System. We're so excited to have guests from another star system. We've prepared a wonderful tour for you." On the Velthari flagship, Warlord Zaxtel stared at his screen in disbelief. The human ships looked like floating party decorations. Their commander was speaking to him like he was a tourist instead of a conqueror. "First stop on our tour," Mi Young continued cheerfully, "is beautiful Mars. You can see our comedy clubs and entertainment centers. The Red Planet is famous for its stand-up comedy scene. Many of our best comedians got their start performing for Mars colonists." Mi Young's ships began flying in formation around the alien fleet, not as an attack force but as tour guides. "Second stop is magnificent Jupiter. Our gas giant has storms that are almost as dramatic as your entrance to our system yesterday. The Great Red Spot has been raging for hundreds of years, but it's never threatened anyone with extinction. Much more polite than some storms we could mention." Several Velthari officers started laughing before they could stop themselves. Laughing was considered a serious crime in their empire, punishable by death. But they couldn't help it. The human approach was so unexpected, so absurd, so completely opposite to everything they knew about warfare. And finally, Mi Young announced, "We have Earth itself, the crown jewel of our system, where you can learn how civilized species resolve conflicts without throwing tantrums or making death threats. We have wonderful museums, restaurants, and cultural centers. No weapons required." Warlord Zaxtel was experiencing something he had never felt before: embarrassment. The humans were treating his mighty invasion fleet like confused tourists who had taken a wrong turn. Worse, it was working. His own crew was starting to smile. "Sir," his second-in-command whispered, "what do we do? Our threat protocols don't cover this situation. We've never encountered a species that responds to invasion with tourism offers." Back on Earth, the global response was even more encouraging. People had started organizing alien welcome parties. Cities around the world were planning parades and festivals to celebrate their first contact with alien life. Instead of preparing for war, humans were preparing for the biggest party in galactic history. Dr. Hana discovered that the Velthari were monitoring all of Earth's communications. They could see the humans preparing for celebrations instead of battles. They could see children drawing pictures of aliens and humans playing together. They could see artists creating songs about friendship between species. "They're seeing something they've never seen before," Dr. Hana told the Emergency Council. "They're seeing a species that responds to threats with invitations. They're seeing people who want to be friends with their enemies." The psychological impact on the Velthari was devastating. Their entire worldview was based on the idea that the universe was full of enemies who had to be conquered or destroyed. But humans were treating them like potential friends who just needed better manners. On the mining planet in the Kepler system, the alien slaves were no longer working. They were too busy watching human broadcasts and learning about this thing called standing up to bullies. For the first time in 30 years, they were not afraid of their Velthari masters. "If the humans can laugh at the Velthari," said one slave, "maybe we can too." "Maybe we don't have to be slaves," said another. "Maybe we can be free." Similar conversations were happening on 16 other worlds controlled by the Velthari Empire. The human response to invasion had become a galactic inspiration for freedom and resistance. Warlord Zaxtel received an urgent message from the Velthari homeworld. The message was from the Supreme Emperor himself. "What is happening? Our empire is collapsing. Conquered worlds are rebelling. Our soldiers are deserting. Fix this immediately or face execution." But Zaxtel didn't know how to fix it. How do you fight an enemy that refuses to fight? How do you scare people who think you're funny? How do you conquer a species that wants to give you a tour instead of a battle? The 72-hour deadline was almost over, but the Velthari were no closer to victory than when they had arrived. In fact, They were further from victory than they had ever been in their history as conquerors. The humans had done something impossible. They had defeated a galactic empire without firing a single shot. They had used laughter as a weapon and kindness as a strategy, and it was working better than anyone had expected.